I'm Tammy Leader with the Army Substance Abuse Program, and we are in our Alcohol Awareness Month, and we are partnering today with the Fort Drum Sexual Assault Coordinator, Sergeant First Class Roxanne Neeson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please give me some information about your program. Give me a good overview.
Okay, so our overview, our clients that we see are anybody that is a military dependent or active duty, dependents 18 and older, that are not in a spouse-on-spouse sexual violence concern.
Okay.
Anybody else with a sexual harassment concern or sexual assault not related to their spouse or intimate partner can come get care in our office.
Okay, so you are the representative that the Fort Drum community will come and visit. And do I understand this right? It'll be family members? Can civilians come see you?
DA civilians can come see us on a limited basis.
Okay, and then of course the active duty military.
Yes.
Okay, all right, and then in response to sexual assault, tell me what consent is. Some people do have a little questions on what is consent.
Yeah, consent is freely given. It's a freely given agreement for a competent person. What consent is not is when somebody doesn't say yes, somebody doesn't say anything at all, pushing somebody away, and I think later on we're going to get into a little bit more how alcohol ties into consent.
Because alcohol can make a bad decision when it comes to
Absolutely.
that term consent. So in understanding consent, tell me when a person cannot consent to sexual activity if she or she is subsequently incapable. What would be some of those circumstances?
So somebody cannot consent when they're impaired by alcohol or drugs, and the UCMJ tells us that a person is incapable of consenting when they're not able to explain the nature of the conduct, or they're physically incapable of declining participation or communicating unwillingness to engage in sexual conduct.
So that is in black and white. That gives us a great overview of what consent is and what consent is not. So with that definition, I bet you can go into a little bit more detail on what risky business is and what risky behaviors are and what we should look out for.
So risky behaviors, those are anything that increase risk for disease or injury. So when you're talking about sexual promiscuity, we're looking at anything that has violence tied to it, alcoholism, substance abuse, that somebody may feel more open to engage in those risky sexual behaviors like unprotected sex, things like that, and then being in a state where they're almost impaired or at risk of being completely impaired and they're still having that sexual activity. Those are risky behaviors. So the responsible thing is to make sure that you and your partner are both saying yes and you're both willing at the same time. That's consent step number one. And then make sure you use protection, make sure you have your wits about you. If you are drinking, know what your limit is, and make sure that you're communicating with your partner early and often to ensure that consent stays, because it can be taken away at any time. The dangers of alcohol and sex is if somebody passes out in the middle of intercourse, you're going to have to stop, because at that point consent has been taken away and they're no longer capable.
And that's a very good point, because alcohol can influence a lot of situations, such as sexual assault.
So the best way to reach any SHARP professional is through our Fort Drum SHARP hotline, which is 315-767-6128.